PowerBoat Television, North America's premier boating show. Here's this week's Mercury Marine My Boat feature.
If you put as many hours on your boat in a summer as I do, you want to make sure you hit all the regular maintenance points, most importantly your engine oil and your transmission fluid. So that's why in this week's My Boat project, we're going to take you through changing your transmission fluid. First on this simple Inboard, and then later on the more complicated V-drives. Now the manual on this 89 Mastercraft calls for you to change the transmission fluid every 100 hours. Now as the boat gets older and the more you use it, it certainly doesn't hurt to do it more than that. And when you see how easy it is, there'll be no excuses not to. Now one of the biggest questions or concerns is how do I get all the old transmission fluid out? Well, a quick tip is to actually just use a simple drill pump. Put one end in the transmission and the other end of the hose into a bucket or a jug and simply just pump all the old stuff out. Now you should always consult your manual if you're changing your transmission fluid for the first time. You see, in 1989, this Mastercraft had the option of either a 1-to-1 ratio or a 1.5-to-1 ratio transmission like we have today. Both call for Dexron 2 transmission fluid, but the 1.5-to-1 like we have today calls for an extra quart. And finally, you'll just want to double check your fluid levels, first now and again later when it's hot. And really, that's it. It's a simple project that can save you a lot of headache later on down the road in your boat's life. Now, if you have V-drives, it's a little more complicated, so I'm gonna hand it over to Mike and he'll take you the rest of the way.
Thanks, Matt. And yes, V-drives are different. You can't just pump the transmission fluid out of them using an electric pump or a vacuum siphon, and that's because of their configuration. The shape just won't allow you to get to the bottom of it. And in most applications, they have a transmission cooler, so you've got to get the fluid from there as well. Now, the easiest way to get the fluid out of a transmission is to disconnect one of the transmission cooling lines, and in this case, the one that goes to the bottom of the case for the transmission into the cooler here. The transmission cooler is tucked in along the side. So what I've done is disconnect the water hose from the pump and undone the mount so we can bring this out into position so you can see what I'm doing here. And it's as simple as disconnecting the line that runs from the bottom of the V-drive to the cooler. Well, it's all drained, so the next task is to reconnect the cooler line and reinstall the transmission cooler. Next task is to refill the transmission. Now normally that would be done in the engine compartment, but because the transmissions in this particular express cruiser tuck in under the mid cabin, this is where we do it. Now because this V-drive transmission installation does have the external hoses and transmission cooler, the only proper way to check to see it's at the right level is to start the engine, let it idle at 1500 for 3 minutes, and then check the level after you quickly shut down. That's all there is to it. That's what you need to know to change your transmission fluids, whether it's a straight drive or a V-drive.